Matthew, your friendly neighborhood BM. We're just going to keep it rolling here with part 3 of Making a Fighter. So we're going to just go over to DND Beyond here. And real quick, while this comes up, I just want to remind everybody, like, subscribe, tell me I'm doing great, tell me I'm doing horrible. I can't improve unless you tell me what's wrong or what you. So as I said, this is part 3 of building a fighter. That means there is two other videos. We're going page by page here, keeping it around 15 minutes. My goal was 10. We've been about 15. That seems to be the sweet spot for each pace. So again, we're on page 3 here, and this is where we get into the real, the cool stuff where you're really starting to choose what your character is going to look like. As you see, we chose variant human. It's one of my favorite choices, particularly for fighters or martial classes. What did I just say? Martial class. So I don't know if this is from the DMG, the DM's the DM's guide. But martial classes are your classes that in combat don't have magic. That's going to be your fighter, the one we're doing here, your barbarian, another great option, and then your rogue. Those are your martial classes who do not, by definition, have magic. There are versions of them and subclasses of them that have forms of magic in their own way, but as a rule, these martial classes don't. You have what most people call your half casters, which are your magic casters that kind of dip in between. You've got paladin is a good example of what I would call a half caster, and ranger is another great example of half caster. Then you've got full casters. That's where you're getting into warlock, wizard, cleric, sorcerer. Those are full casters. They stay in the back. They're the squishies, Anyway, that's not what we're doing today. We're keeping it simple with a fighter, our variant human race type, and it's just going to tell you, hey, here's some choices you got to make. So racial traits, skills, feat. Cool. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to choose your language. A lot of choices here. Lot of choices. First thing, everyone, you start off knowing common. Common is whatever the common language of the realm is. Everyone, for the most part, you're expected to be able to speak with most people in the popular cultures in the world. If you start going to cool, adventurous places, maybe you need to pick up another language. This is where you do it. So choose a language. Woo, that's a list. I could go through each of these. I really could. But as you can see, there's, what would you say? 20 at least. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2. Yeah, a bunch. There's a bunch. Look them up. Look at the names. Google them. Look at the names. Look them up on DND Beyond. If that doesn't make sense to you, message me. Look them up online. Ask your friends. But what we're going to do here, we're a human, and we can flavor him and decide what kind of character he's going to be. And you know what feels good to me? Celestial, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's the language of the gods, we'll just say, and beings. So cool, we've picked a language. We're already a quarter of the way there, guys. Ability score increase. Now, what I'm actually going to do is not touch this right now. Why am I not going to do that? I'm not going to do that because what we're going to do is next episode is we're going to roll for ability scores. And then we're going to take those ability scores, put them where we want them to be, and then come back here and choose where we want to put our racial ability score increase. So It's saying here we've got a choice of increasing 2 different scores by 1. So that's what we'll be doing next episode. Next, skills. So you've got your abilities and you've got your skills. Abilities are your strength, dexterity, constitution, charisma, wisdom, and intelligence. Skills, let me show you your skills, folks. You've got choices between acrobatics, animal handling, arcana, athletics, deception, history, insight, intimidation, investigation, medicine, nature, perception, performance, persuasion, religion, sleight of hand, stealth, survival. I should have scrolled down, but that's it. Boom. So you've got choices of all those. So what kind of character do you want to build? What's his background? What's her background? Where are they coming from? What are their goals? And what skills have they picked up along the way? So you know what? For his first skill, because he's going to get more. This is just the skill he gets with his race. I'm going to say intimidation. It's a little bit of a weird skill for a fighter, but not that uncommon. You know, maybe he was a heavy for a gang. Sorry, I'm actually moving them right there. Who knows? That's something we will sort as time goes on. And do you see, as building this character, we're actually coming up with ideas of what they look like. I've kind of already decided it's a he. And that's just because that's my perspective, guys. I'm sorry. And then feet. So as I mentioned earlier, humans, you get a feat right out the gate. You live a lot less time than all these races. This is just to level the playing field, really. So feats. I could do a whole video on feats. I could do a whole video on a lot of the things that we've gone through. So just as time goes on, we're going to, explore these feats. I'm going to say what each one, means as they come up. But for right now, we're going to go with something simple. Because we're trying to keep it simple here, right, guys? So, slasher. We're going to say this guy, his feat is slasher. And what does slasher mean? It means you've learned where to cut to have the greatest results, granting you the following benefits. Increase your strength or dexterity by 1. So you get another ability score increase here with this feat. That is important. That's particularly important later on. So at certain points, as you level up, you get a choice. You can either increase your ability scores or you could take a feat. A lot of feats aren't like this, and they don't give you an ability score increase. So normally you would increase your ability score by 2 or take a feat and not increase your ability score. This allows you to take a feat and increase your ability score by a little bit, by half the amount you normally would. So that's very useful. That's very effective. That's very great. And it's kind of a new thing that they've done. But again, like with the other one, we're going to save actually assigning it until we figure out what our ability scores are. So next, once per turn, when you hit a creature. So we'll get into combat more, but there's 2 parts to any player's turn on combat. Or if they attack. There's rolling to attack, and there's rolling to hit, and then there's rolling damage. Rolling to hit is basically just that. Rolling to determine whether or not you hit your opponent. It's that simple, and we'll get into more of that when we get to it. Rolling for damage is exactly what it sounds like. All right, cool, you've hit. How much damage do you deal? So this is saying once per turn when you hit a creature with an attack that deals slashing damage, i.e. a sword, you can reduce the speed of that target by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. That's pretty cool. They're hobbled. They're not doing so great. They're not moving as fast. That's useful. When you score a critical hit that deals slashing damage to a creature. So we'll talk about critical hits. That's basically meaning when you roll a 20, a nat 20. Everyone's heard about that. If you've kind of played around with the idea of playing D&D and now you're really getting into it, good for you. You've probably heard of nat 20. This is it. You've scored a critical hit that deals slashing damage to your opponent. You grievously wound it until the start of your next turn. So there's rounds in combat. It's kind of like Pokemon, or more like your old Final Fantasy games. But until the start of your next turn, the target has disadvantage on all attack rolls. So all rolls to hit, they have disadvantage. What is disadvantage? Well, if what is disadvantage, what is advantage? So advantage and disadvantage. So as I said, you roll to see if you hit. So what are you going to do? So if you're going to roll to hit, and you're going to roll 1d20 like this, and you're going to add things. I crit. Perfect. So that's a critical hit. And so that last effect would have been activated. Cool. Well, what if I had disadvantage though? Well, what I'll actually do here is roll 2d20s. It's going to add them because I didn't do anything, I didn't, set it up. But you've got a 13 and a 16. So rolling with disadvantage says you take the 13. Now, if you were doing that roll, but you were rolling with advantage, you take the 16. See how that works. All right. So we've selected our feat, guys. We've got to select our ability score increases along with, our ability score increase from our feat in the next video. I'm going to be starting to make that video any minute here. Again, good luck, adventurers. Hope you're doing great.